Hey kids, my name is Anthony Ruttgaizer, and I'm the creator and writer of Heroes of Homeroom C, and you are listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Anthony Ruttgaizer about his comic book offerings in advance of Toronto Comicon 2025. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button, so be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Anthony Ruttgaizer is a comic book writer and occasional cartoonist, best known for such works as the all-ages graphic novel series Heroes of Homeroom C, superhero comics The First Hero and Actionverse, and the monster apocalypse neo-western Chance for Survival. Anthony is also the host of the pop culture podcast The Handsome Genius Club radio show. Heroes of Homeroom C tells a tale of Nicola and Albert Hathaway, twin 12-year-old African-American superheroes who lose their powers and get sent back to public school to try to jumpstart a normal life. But even in the small-town paradise of Tranquil, Massachusetts, the kids find themselves caught up in danger and excitement. Nicola and Albert face off against a young wizard named Damien LeVey. Damien and his mother have recently moved to Tranquil following his parents' divorce. Damien enacts a desperate plan, filled with dark magic, that he thinks will let him return to live with his father, a not-too-successful West Coast supervillain. So without further ado, here's my chat with Anthony Ruttgaizer about his comic book offerings in advance of Toronto Comicon 2025. So Anthony Ruttgaizer, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thanks for taking the time to have me on the show, John.
No, this is great. It's great to catch up, and find out what's going on in your neck of the woods. But before I get to all the questions, I would like to know, what are you reading today?
What am I reading? Well, I have Leon, Worst Friends Forever, that I'm about to start, which is Jamar Nicholas, friend of mine from the States, from Philadelphia. It is a sequel to Leon the Protector, his story of an 8-year-old wannabe grade school superhero. And this just came out a couple of months ago from Scholastic through Graphics. And I am looking forward to digging into this.
That sounds pretty neat.
Yeah.
Now, I read on your Blue Sky post that you're working on Volume 2 of Heroes of Homeroom C. I know we talked about that ages ago, but wondering, for those not familiar with that story, how would you describe it to someone?
Yeah, my elevator pitch at conventions is usually the same. I say, twin 12-year-old superheroes lose their powers and their parents send them back to public school. We did Volume 1, oh my, in 2017? Is that right? That's crazy. Beginning of last year, I finally broke the story for Volume 2. Here's something a lot of people don't know. I wrote almost a reboot of Volume 1. It's terrible to, to phrase it that way, but I had been talking to an agent and I needed a longer version of Volume 1 to sell to larger book publishers. And I wrote a much larger version of Volume 1 with a similar but changed story, a different antagonist. And it didn't work out with shopping a larger volume to publishers. And that kind of stalled my momentum for a while. And it's not until the beginning of last year that I finally came up with a story that I really, really liked for a Volume 2. And as a consequence, got the very barest of bones for a Volume 3. So we are, in fact, Carlos is back. I spoke to him last year and said, I'm going to do this. I really want it to be with you. And he said, yes. let's do this. And I said, let's do 2 and 3 back to back. So we are working on volumes 2 and 3 of Heroes of Homeroom C.
Wow, that is really cool. That is really cool.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. No, I know it's disappointing that you didn't get that larger book done, but all that work that you did on it, expanding the story and redoing it, is that sort of put on the shelf now and will never be revisited again?
Uh, well, it was a version of the volume 1 that's been published. So it was the only major difference was a tinkering with the antagonist, as I said.
Hmm.
If people have read, I'm not going to give away any story.
No, no, no. Yeah.
If people have read Volume 1, they know that the antagonist in that story was the twins' new classmate named Damien. And Damien, can I do this without giving away
Yeah,
any?
I don't want to put you in a spot. That's okay. That's okay. Not to worry.
Let's just say that a new version of Damien had to be created, uh, and so that character's backstory was vastly different. His motivation was the same, but his backstory was very, very different,
Hmm.
and it led to a similar climax for the story, but a little sillier, a little more comical. And that's where I got stuck because I liked what I had created for this alternate version, but it really wasn't usable. I couldn't adapt it to turn into a volume 2 because of how much of it was based on the original volume 1.
Hmm.
So it was very much going back to the drawing board and clearing all the ideas out of my head and starting over again.
Wow. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of when they used to do TV pilots, especially Star Trek. They said, okay, write us a pilot. No, that didn't work. Try it again.
Oh,
So,
sure.
and it goes on the shelf or whatever. So it's a shame that you did all that work, but it's fascinating the process. So thank you for sharing that with us. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yes, we're working on volume 2. Carlos got started on a few pages, but then he had some stuff that he had to take care of personally. And I have had some stuff in the last couple of months. So we spoke again a few days ago, and he's getting stuck back into the art for volume 2. And I am hoping to have volume 2 in time for Fan Expo Canada, the end of the summer. We're going to do 2 and 3 back to back. So I will hopefully have volume 3 ready to go maybe as early as next MegaCon, but definitely by somewhere. I'm basing it on conventions, and the big 3 for me are MegaCon when I'm able to do it, Calgary Comic Expo in April, and Fan Expo Canada. So at one of those next year, I'll have volume 3.
That sounds cool. I also read that the Artsy Fartsy Comicon is on your calendar for this year. So I wonder if you could drop a few hints about what attendees can expect.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those who don't know, I have run a couple of little 1-day shows here in Toronto, comic book shows myself, called Artsy Fartsy Comic Con, which is the most serious and least serious name I could come up with. And the whole point is that they are absolutely comic book and creator focused. The poster for the first show had the slogan, "Bring money, buy comics." I want people to come and meet creators and leave with something new to read. It's very much just a little artist alley. There's no retailers, there's no mountains of Funko Pops. I've run 2 shows. We had one cosplayer. It's an artist alley. It is a comic book creator show. I'm going way, way out in advance on this one. December 6th and 7th at the Transact Club in Toronto. Saturday, December 6th is going to be the return of my wrestling promotion, the Union of Independent Professional Wrestlers. And Sunday, December 7th is going to be Artsy Fartsy Comic Con 3.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Adding the wrestling component is kind of neat. That's for sure. And I'm seeing there's a big connection between comic books and wrestling. I'm sure you're familiar with Andy Belanger. He's mixing up the two now and then. I'm wondering,
Of course.
do you think there's a wrestling comic book in your future?
There is, in fact, when the rewritten Heroes of Homeroom C, I was going to say fell on deaf ears, but when that idea didn't take hold, I started work on a wrestling story. I am absolutely going to follow through on it. It'll probably be about a 220 page graphic novel, young adult read. I am hoping that that will be my project for 2027. I have, between the Homeroom C2 and 3 and this book and one other young adult book that I'm working on, that I have a synopsis, well, I have a story map for. I could turn it into a script in a matter of weeks. I have a graphic novel plus some other projects planned out for 25, 26, 27, and 28. So, yes, absolutely, there is a wrestling story, a wrestling graphic novel in my future.
That's really cool. That is
Yeah.
something to look forward to for sure. Now, I've also read that you're planning a book to honor the late Lee Moder. And
Yeah.
and I wonder if you talk a little bit about that.
I've talked to plenty of other places about it, about my friendship with Lee. And Lee and I met my first night at San Diego Comicon in 1993. And we were friends for 30 years. It was very much a stepbrother situation where we just kind of looked at each other and said, are we best friends now? Yup. And that friendship endured for 30 years. But Lee passed away around New Year's of 2023. So I became steward to a lot of his original art, especially his sketchbooks. On a bookshelf just a few feet away from me, I have Lee Moder's sketchbooks stretching from 1987 until I have the last thing he ever drew. And I spent a lot of time trying to convince Lee, this is what we should be doing. Let me put together a book. And he let me put together a digital sketchbook at one point. We talked about larger books and merchandise, and the problem wasn't that they weren't good ideas. It was that Lee was fighting a battle in his head that his friends couldn't help him with. Ultimately, that contributed to him passing away. And we'll talk about it in the book, but I have been curating and collating his art. I have a partner in this, graphic designer by the name of Todd Hagrick. Todd was Lee's other best friend, and they knew each other years before I had even met Lee. They were college roommates, and they shared a house together in Pittsburgh, and they were, again, friends until the end. It was a no-brainer to get Todd involved in this. We're doing the design together, and he's doing the layouts of the book. I have contacted some of Lee's friends and collaborators. Jimmy Palmiotti has written a piece. Jeff Johns has written a piece. Ron Mars is writing a piece. There are a handful of other people like Ron Boyd who are going to contribute bits and pieces. It's the tribute he deserves.
Yeah.
Lee never got to the heights in the business that his talent deserved for a variety of reasons, and some of them we'll talk about in the book. I've told everybody writing, don't sugarcoat things, because the text of the book isn't just to blow smoke. The text in the book, the essays in the book, are also there to illuminate the very real struggle with mental health that Lee had, and to hopefully maybe not answer. I don't know if I can answer a lot of questions, but maybe I can inspire the reader to start asking the right questions for themselves and the people around them.
Yeah, that's a great effort for sure. And it's definitely worthwhile to honor his memory. And as you said, maybe to educate people about what he went through. So,
Plus, his art is just goddamn gorgeous.
oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, for sure. It sounds like you got a lot on the go. And on top of all that, you're going to be at Toronto Comicon with all your
Yes.
stuff too. That sounds like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love doing Toronto Comic Con. So you know what, I might like Toronto Comic Con more than Fan Expo Canada, but I'll be damned if I don't want to do both.
Mm.
Uh, March 14th, 15th, and 16th. It's always right around St. Patrick's Day at the Metro Toronto Convention Center. And it's always a great show. It's, smaller than Fan Expo Canada, which is just fine by me. Fan Expo is a 3-day show, and it's one of the 10 largest in North America. Toronto Comic Con is just a really good, comfortably sized show. It's not small by any stretch of the imagination. Man, if I could get 40,000 people through Artsy Fartsy Comic Con. And yeah, I've got a couple of new mini comics that I'm working on. I was actually just this will sound silly out of context, so you'll have to come to the show and pick one up. I was just drawing a picture of Tupac in a comic strip for, for one of the mini comics, and decided last year to start putting together my comic strips into a print form. And it's basically, the series is called WTF. So this will be the second one of those. And I'm also doing a kind of an ash can. I'm sure, you've interviewed so many writers in your time, so many comic creators, that there are things that they have created that have just ended up on the cutting room floor for whatever reason. And most of those, if they're good, deserve to be seen in some form. I have 10 pages of fully finished art for a time travel story called Beta Testing that I did a few years ago and shopped around. At one point, I decided, okay, I'm going to stop shopping this. And I'm going to do it myself at some point. But it hasn't gotten done. I decided a few months ago, I'm going to do an ash can version of this. So it'll be, 5.5 by 8.5. It'll have the 10 pages, and it'll have a synopsis of the story, the rest of the story, and some character designs by the artist, Pippin Tobing. And you never know, if enough people pick up the ash can, like it, maybe the full thing will get done at some point. Maybe this really nice version of the ash can will end up in the right people's hands, and they'll say, hey, why don't you come over here and finish this book with us? I'm working on those two things right now, trying to get those done real quick. I think the next thing will be the motor book. I think will come out next after that. And then I also have a 40-pager called The Last Mammal on Earth, which is exactly what the title implies. And I have a fantastic artist who I have recruited. I don't want to go too far into this one, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also hoping to have that done before Fan Expo this year. Yeah, I'm just trying to, John, I'm just trying to get as much material in people's hands as possible in the next couple of years so I can coast into my 60s.
Okay. Well, that's a good plan. That's a good plan. Well, with everything you got on the go, which is quite a bit, where should people look for you online? Where should they go?
They can find me at ruttgaizer.com, RUTTGAIZERZER for you American listeners, .com. One of the things I'm doing lately is trying to consolidate my web presence all into that site. So I've got a couple of sections that need to be fleshed out. I do have a web store, merchtable.store, which may or may not change in the next few weeks. I'm kind of dissatisfied with the store, so I've been looking at alternatives. So that might be part of the website changes. But yeah, and social media, you can usually find me on social media at My Name is Kingdom, all one word, My Name is Kingdom. But on Blue Sky, I decided to go by my name. On Blue Sky, I am Anthony Ruttgaizer.
Very good. Well, Anthony, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you want to get across in this interview?
If you're in Vancouver, I don't know, when is this going to go online, John?
Real soon. How about that?
Okay, real soon. So as we record this, we're about 10 days away, 10 or 11 days away from Fan Expo Vancouver. If you're listening on the West Coast, come to Fan Expo Vancouver. I'll be in Artist Alley and I'll be hosting panels. In Toronto in March, Toronto Comicon that we spoke about, March 14th through the 16th, Metro Toronto Convention Center. And the end of April, the 24th through the 27th, I will be at Calgary Comic Expo. One of my absolute favorite, maybe my favorite show of the year is Calgary Comic Expo. And with the renovations that they've been doing at the Stampede Grounds out there, everything is going to be in one building this year. If people have attended Calgary Comic Expo the last few years, they know that they've been using two buildings. This year, it's all under one roof, which should make it easier for people. So by all means, please come to that show and find me in Artist Alley. Bring money, buy comics.
Thanks to Anthony for the chat. You can discover more about Anthony at anthonyruttgaizer.com and on Instagram at instagram.com/mynameIsKingdom. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to the full conversations and discover more about creators and their insight on making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.